ejercicios de interpretación. A ver, si los necesitan, por favor, hagan clic en el globo terráqueo que aparece en la parte inferior de la pantalla para que nos escuchen en español. Gracias.
Thank you. All right. Do we have consensus on the order of business? And I will also point out that tonight, Mrs. Roger is absent and Mr. Clausen is joining us remotely. So our student representatives of the board, do you want to go show Colton the ropes?
Totally.
Yeah.
So it's really great to see you all again. It's been a while. Things at Slow High are definitely heating up, especially for the seniors, because we're kind of gearing up for that graduation season. And we're having a lot of different senior events planned in the future. So I'll start off with highlighting the 50-day dinner. The 50-day dinner conceptually is just 50 days before graduation, we all meet for dinner. And this year it's going to be in our new cafeteria up the new building, which we are thrilled about. And yeah, it's going to be a great time. We're just going to get together and have a feast. Mr. Dickinson will be a staff speaker there. And then we are also raffling off a mini fridge, which I'm really excited about because that's always been a no in my household, in my room. So if I win it, I'll put it in the dorm in the name of adult independence. And yeah, it should be great. And then we also have a big event coming up. SLCUSD, as you can probably guess from the name, is our student music festival. The theme is Color Blast, so everyone will have white festival shirts at first, and then we will throw paint on them all night, and then they'll like kind of leave with tie-dyed festival shirts. Yeah, we have 3 student performers, so it'll be Georgie the band, Elbow Drop Sunday, and myself and my friend Thomas Bide are going to do another DJ set. So all of our fans from Winter Formal will flock and see us at SLCUSD as well. And then we also have 3 vendors as well. We have 805 Tacos. We have a local boba, provider as well. Boba is like tea, you got it. And then also we have Keki Hawaiian Shaved Ice, which will be a super great event. So we're super excited for SLCUSD to happen as well. And then also we have a blood drive coming up. It is our second blood drive of the year. And I know you definitely don't want to hear me talk about the same spiel that I gave you in January. So Ms. Dawson, we have a video. Hit it.
Dang, what happened to your arm?
It got slashed when I was mountain biking a couple days ago.
Jeez, how does it feel?
It's doing all right. The hospital patched it up pretty good, but I lost a lot of blood and the hospital couldn't give me any.
Oh my gosh, he needs blood. I know a reliable source that always donates blood. Let me call him.
Slow High School blood drive. This is Taya. On it. Mark, we have an emergency. Grab our most recent donation, head to the practice field. You have 1 minute max. Go.
Got it, boss. Everyone needs blood. April 26th, blood drive, SLO High School. Sign up, tell your friends. You have to be 16 years or older. Help save lives.
Thank you, Mrs. Dawson. So, yeah, as you could probably tell, that was our promotional video for the blood drive this time around. Our very talented student actors that's Gavin Wren, Brindley Ewan, and then Mark Rourke, and then Taya Kalpakoff. And Taya Kalpakoff is actually our Commissioner of Community Relations. So she's in charge with putting on all of these community service related events. So she's done the blood drives, beach cleanups, and she's done a great job. She's going to be our vice president next year. So she's done a really great job. And then last but not least, this week is a rally week at SLO High. So Friday we have our spring rally. It's going to be highlighting most of our spring athletes, so all of our spring sports, and then also getting people ready for prom. And I know there's a lot of SLO High students watching at home, so I won't spoil all the events. But in 2 weeks, I'll give you a complete update of what went on. And then after that, we also have our student-run barbecue. You know the drill, just highlighting the students and staff who make our campus a really great place for the month of April. And yeah, it's pretty much all I have for everyone. So thank you.
Well, you are you gave us the definition of how donating blood saves lives. So that was it was heartfelt and moving and motivational, inspirational, I would say.
That's what we were going for.
Yeah,
sure.
it worked. It worked. Thank you. Thanks
you.
a lot. Yeah.
I did. I'm going to be a San Francisco State Gator. Yeah.
Yay.
Super exciting, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, and Colton, you got a big act to follow here, but I know you can do it.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to see all you guys tonight. I just found out about this yesterday, so I'm going to read off my little script that I have here about things going on, which I've been involved in most of them, so I can go off script a little bit and talk about. Last week, as an ASD class, we hosted our spring week to get everybody hyped for change of season, longer days, sunnier days, just a brighter look on life, getting out of that winter funk. Monday, we had making friendship bracelets in the quad at lunch. Tuesday, we had post a spring memory on Instagram for spirit points. At the high school, we have a spirit point total running for each class of freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Right now, juniors are in the lead. So yeah, pretty proud of that. At the end of the semester, the winning class gets pretty much a burrito day at lunch. So that's pretty awesome. To continue, Wednesday was country versus country club. So we had a bunch of students dress up like cowboys and farmers, and then some other students dress up like polos, kind of more country club-esque. And then Thursday was egg hunt. We hid a bunch of Easter eggs filled with candy all over campus. So students could look for them at lunch, give them something to do, something to increase spirit at our school. Because a big problem that we've had in the past, ever since coming out of COVID, was that kind of our students have been a little bit wary about whether they should participate. And our big focus, at least since I've been at the high school for the past 3 years coming out of COVID, has been to get everybody involved, all 800 of our students involved, getting hyped to do stuff at our school. And I feel like we're on the come up towards that. Mr. Scaldi's nodding his head in approval. Yeah. So that's pretty awesome. Moving on from ASB towards FFA, they're also a great leadership program at our high school. They had a drive-through barbecue last week as a fundraiser. I heard they raised a lot of money towards their events for both the rest of this year and coming towards next year. The biggest event I can say from this past weekend and this coming weekend is the drama club's production of The Addams Family and our brand new theater at our high school that just opened about walking in to have a fully functioning theater. Addams Family was absolutely amazing. You guys should go see it this weekend. You can buy tickets at MBHS_drama. So definitely go check that out. As regards to sports, we have boys volleyball and boys varsity track. Our boys volleyball team got first place in silver bracket at the Fresno Christian tournament over spring break. So there's some sports success at the high school, somewhat rare, but we're on the come up. More of a high. Look out for all of our sports teams. boys varsity track also took second place at the King City Invitational. So we're kind of showing up in all those big Valley School events, which is pretty amazing to see. Moving on to something that ASB has been trying to focus on this year, which is involving our MI students, which stands for more intensive. We had our Los Osos Middle School's MI program and their students come over to our high school and hang out with Mr. Grimm's class this week before break. It was a super awesome experience. We got to include Los Osos Middle School's MI class, Morabay High's MI class, and then both Morabay and Lomes's ASB class. So it's kind of a big, for lack of better words that I'm blanking on, kind of like a big feeding frenzy of like introductions, getting the middle school students introduced to the high school, getting the MI students more involved in the high school's events going on. We gave them a big tour of our school, big tour of everything, got them more comfortable with the environment so they can have a better, an easier kind of dissension into going to high school because, yeah. Also, lastly, we had a very, very new, absolutely amazing opportunity that came through our high school that I got the amazing opportunity to go on, which was a Santa Cruz Island field study trip, which was absolutely amazing. Over spring break, 14 students with the Santa Cruz Islands spending 6 days going through authentic science research and in collaboration with the National Park Service, Cal Poly, and the Nature Conservancy on the island. Nature Conservancy staff, and we all learned outdoor and field biology techniques while conducting long-term botanical studies. So, from my eyes, it was basically a week long on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with absolutely no, like, you're so immersed in nature that you just get the purest form of, like, just absolutely mind-changing, like, not even put into words. It's such an amazing opportunity for any high school students to go on. You get real world scientific study skills. You get the opportunity to learn from Cal Poly students who have gone through their entire educational journey and have learned so much. It's such a good opportunity to have mentors and learn about what they've done in life so you can kind of get a better idea. It's an absolutely amazing opportunity, super awesome. We do have a report coming out soon about it that's more defined and not off the top of my head, but I think Kennedy Crockett is Mr. Shelby she's releasing that report. Miss Crockett is releasing a report about the trip that should be released on the high school's website soon. So look forward to that. Michaela and Alana will probably inform you guys about that next meeting, but thank you.
Thank you. You did great. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really a great report. So as always, we love it when you stay, if should you choose to, but we know, especially this time of year, you may have some other things going on. So whatever you need to do, but thank you so much for your reports. We really benefit from them. Thanks. Okay, next is our student presentation.
Our school highlights. Yeah, we
Yay.
have Teach Elementary School today, and Mrs. Darla Batistic, principal, is here, and she'll introduce her staff and students. Mrs. Batistic.
Right. Am I driving this? Looking.
You know what, Sam, you're going to need to stand at the microphone so that everyone can hear you, both here and the people who are watching on their computers. Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us here tonight. We always love to come to the board meetings and share some highlights about our program at Teach Elementary. Tonight, I'm here with our 4th grade students, Mia Vincent, you can kind of wave me up, Sam Wolfenden, and Felipe Carrero de Silva. And I also have with me my fantastic 4th grade teaching team, Angie Whitaker and Shauna Robson. And we would like to share tonight a little bit about one of our school-wide initiatives. You may remember we've been at the board meeting the last 2 years, sharing with you our 5th grade and our 6th grade, what we call deeper learning strands. Tonight, we're highlighting our 4th grade deeper learning strand, and it is all about coding and robotics. Just a quick visual. Why is coding and robotics important? And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I want to point out a couple of things. One is that number 3 up there, coding teaches storytelling with games and animations, and it's highly engaging for kids. The other thing I want to highlight up there is that coding gives students a chance to get it wrong and to persevere and to change things and try something different. It really develops that grit. And they say that learning, when you're truly learning, you're on the edge of what you don't know. Coding gives you that chance to try something that you don't know how to do, and then make some adjustments and try it in a different way. And it's something that I think our students today really will benefit them in the future. And it gives that authentic experience. I'm going to turn it over to Shauna Robson for a minute, and then the kids will be demonstrating some really fun technology for you tonight.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. So at the beginning of the year, Ms. Batistic mentioned a lot about trial and error and the kids not succeeding at first. And Ms. Whitaker and I have had to go through that a lot as well, because this is not in our comfort zone necessarily. So we are constantly learning with the kids, and coding is very new to both of us. So we start out the year with a pretty simple program called Tinker Code. And the kids get to know kind of the basics. And when I say the kids get to know, it's really, they come in already, a lot of them knowing, and get to teach each other, which is amazing to see. But you can see a couple programs at the beginning of the year. They did the lunar moon. You had to get the rocket. Yeah, they had to program the rocket to go to the moon and then have it come back. And there's some different codes that you can see here that they got to play around with, and they had a lot of fun with it. And once they were finished with that task, they get a certificate, and then they get to move on to the next task. So from there, we've kind of graduated to Spheros, which we're so fortunate that the foundation was able to provide to our school. We use them on a weekly basis with our fellow from Cal Poly, Jason Rusko. He's amazing. And he comes in and helps Mrs. Whitaker and I every Friday. And the kids have learned so much, as, like I said, we are learning with them. So they wanted to show you some awesome things that they're doing.
As you know, I'm Sam, and I'm from Teach Elementary. Some things about Spheros, they're really fun, as Miss Batistic showed you. They're really cool, like coding and stuff, because you could do it a lot, and yeah, it's just really amazing. Hi, I'm Mia, and something I love about coding is that you get to make as many mistakes as you want, and it doesn't change anything, because you can always go back and fix your mistakes, and that's a great thing because you learn from them and you grow from those mistakes.
Something I love about coding is that like you can be like as creative as you can. It's like you can do anything you want. I mean, there's infinite possibilities.
All right, do you guys want to show a couple of things you can do? Okay, let them roll. I'll hold the mic if you want to talk. First, what's this first thing?
The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna like align where it's gonna go because we want to make it go a certain way. By using like the aim button, you can go around and then like behind right here, there's a blue dot that shows you where it's gonna go. I have a code that I made right now. Oh, no. Does anybody want to come and try it? Guys, somebody.
Okay. Oops. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So what you want to do is which way do you want it to go? So it's going to go this way right now, and you can just like move this around.
I see. Got it. Okay, do I use my thumb or my fingers? What do you use?
I kind of just use my thumb.
Your thumb?
Yeah, and then you just go around. You can just
All right.
you can also like change the speed and also the color.
Let's go fast.
Oh, you're spinning around. Very good.
Coming for you, Mr. Unger.
Under the table.
All right, here we go.
Hey, bring it back now.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's
Very good.
thank you guys.
Oh, yeah.
I created a code to like make it go in a square. One sec. I'm lining it up and now I'll go. Just one sec. Okay. Sorry. Oh, my code got to. Yeah. Right now it's going in a square. And at the end there's a line.
You want to show them the code?
Oh, very cool.
What language is it? What language do they use for coding?
What's your coding language? Blocks. Blocks.
Block coding? Block. Okay.
So, in the past, like about 3-4 weeks. We've been working on a project. It's a race course, and it's gonna be Miss Robson versus Miss Whitaker, and like there's a race course that Jason gave us on paper, and there's like degrees, and we've been learning about like degrees and like so and then we've been like using the degrees and like how much speed, how long it walks, like how many seconds. And we've been working on that for some time. And
Sounds great. When is it?
When we finish.
Okay, just let us know, or Ms. Batista can let us know. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Darla? Hey, Darla, as part of the project, so it came with Spiro, right? And then the controllers they're using, those look like little smartphones. Are they smartphones? And did the foundation also help purchase the smartphones for every child? Okay. And all the innovation labs in all the schools. Oh. And are they smartphones? So I'm assuming that Spiros is an app that goes on there, right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then we just wanted to conclude with some highlights that we had fourth graders wanted to share about their overall thoughts with Spiros. So one of them is, I am learning how to cooperate and compromise with my teammates. And then you can look up there just to get a feel for the rest of them.
All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting us to the board meeting tonight.
Yeah,
and
thanks for showing us. That was it was a great demonstration.
If you want
Thank
to
you.
have some fun, come by on a Friday. Teach Elementary Innovation Lab.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's great to see your project. All right, our next item is 7.01 correspondence, and at the time the agenda was published, no official correspondence had been received. So next is 7.02 public comment. At this point in the agenda, we welcome public comment either for items that are not on the agenda, or if it's on the agenda but you don't want to wait until the item is heard by the board, you can speak now. We do have forms back at the back that we appreciate you filling out and turning in, but it is not a requirement. At this time, is there anyone who wishes to address the board? And online? On Zoom. Okay, great. Next, we are ready for our superintendent's updates, and first is business and budget. Mr. Pinkerton.
So tonight, the board is going to hear all about the LCAP and our progress towards it. And so the fiscal team, Katie, has been meeting with the instructional services team, putting together the budget that goes along with that. So I just want the board to know there's a lot that goes into the planning and payroll and figuring out kind of this plan that we will be presenting to the board over the next month and a half and getting your input and as we progress. So again, just a lot of work happening. I had a great meeting yesterday with our fiscal staff as well as our IT staff and our library tech staff to talk about one-on-one computers. So I know that's something that board goal we've kind of implemented throughout, especially with COVID. And so it's quite the process, right? Because over a certain amount of time, Chromebooks, though cheap to initially purchase, what Google does is they stop updating them after a certain number of years on purpose, right? So, and then when they're not updated, then they don't. You can't do the state testing or the things on those books, right? So, kind of again working on a plan to to best figure out how that works, how it goes. And so, eventually also want to try to find a way to make it easier for our library techs too. So one of the things right now is really looking at kind of a 7th grade implementation. So all 7th graders would get a new Chromebook that then would stay with them throughout their educational experience, through middle school, through high school, which would still, by the date, would still be able to be used for STAR testing. So kind of that process, right? And then the next year would be the 7th graders, the next year 7th graders, and kind of working on that. The students would keep the Chromebooks summertime, the entire time. So, which is really nice because then the library techs don't have to collect them in June and check them back out and those types of things, right? So now I just simplified something that's really like a program, right? Because you have to check them out, you have to keep track of them, you have to build an insurance program for parents and students to potentially pay into or not, right? Because if they break or lose a cord or do something. So there's a lot of that planning is happening right now that we're working on. And so I'll report back. I'll share that with the board, Friday notes, those types of things. So at the same time, K6, we're also, we have one-to-one, but it's more in the classroom. So we have classroom computers for students, throughout all of our grade levels, right? K6. So same thing, they test 3rd through 6th grade. So it's just right now kind of working out that, how are we going to implement that from a year-to-year basis, right? And so yeah, there's just a lot that goes into it. And again, we've a lot of school districts around us have already kind of implemented the insurance program part of it and those types of things. So we are talking with them, what works, what doesn't, how does this unfold, right? And so it's been good. So, but definitely something that we need to, we're shooting for the fall to kind of implement this new plan, get it in place, right? And everybody that discussed it last night was really excited about, kind of where we're headed. So good.
Looks like we have some, I tried to keep track of this. Mark, then Eve, then Chris.
So kudos. Sounds like a big accomplishment on Chromebooks. I just really am hoping that Google is listening, wondering what they're going to do with all those Chromebooks that are not functional and what we can do to maybe get them to countries or someplace where they'll do into neighborhoods where they can be used. But thanks for Brian. It's an amazing job that you and your staff did at the beginning of COVID. I talk about it all over the state. Within 2 weeks, every kid in our district had access to a Chromebook, and not every family had access to a hotspot. Every kid had access to a hotspot. So congratulations to you and Jeremy and everybody in IT.
I'll just say congratulations closing the digital divide.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess I had the same concerns as Mr. Buckman. I'm wondering what happens to the Chromebooks when they become obsolete.
So we figure with this process, so it's about 6 years the students would have the Chromebook. And honestly, probably 6 years is about the life cycle of a Chromebook, in particular the battery, right? The batteries just die out over time. So, that's really the key area that would be concerned, right? So again, you can still get online, use it, those types of things. There's just certain programming like STAR testing, those types of things that you can't, or SPEC testing, you can't use it for, but it's still a device that you can get on Google and, use it. They just don't have their, manual updates, after that point. So I'm sure there's some restrictions, things that doesn't work, but my hope would be that we would have kind of an exit plan. So the students, as they leave the campus, maybe they purchase it from us at a really nominal cost, right? So it kind of just stays with them. So to be determined as we move forward.
Thank you. All right, next is educational services update.
Yes, thank you. Just a few updates from educational services, starting with our elementary English language arts adoption, or what we call our reading committee. Our reading committee met for the 3rd of 4 meetings just last week, and they are really accomplishing just a tremendous amount. This last time they were working with 4 different publishers. And those publishers shared with the committee kind of the pros and cons of their product. They looked at physical materials, they looked at digital interfaces, and what they're trying to do is decide what we want to pilot next year. This group of teachers and parents and administrators from across the district decided they needed a little bit more time. So they took some samples back to their school sites, and they're taking a deeper dive and then coming together at the next meeting to decide what we're going to be piloting next year. It's just a really tremendously thoughtful group of people who are diving into this. And I'm really having some rich conversations, making sure that this is the best for our kids when we finally decide what we're going to be purchasing. Update on elementary athletics for achievement. Last Friday, we had a district-wide tournament for winter 2 season, which is girls soccer and boys basketball. We had all 10 of our elementary schools participate and 6th graders from Los Osos Middle School, and had over 300 kids participating. So a really, really valuable opportunity for our kids. We're actually starting our spring sports soon, and that will be track and field for our kids and a lot of relay races. So we'll keep you posted on when those events are. We would love for you to see how we are implementing this program and truly the value to our students. And then finally, just an AVID update as we're heading towards spring. We have our AVID high school students and our AVID middle school students going into classrooms, high school into middle school and middle school into elementary school, just trying to recruit those kids for the next level, trying to get our 6th graders to participate in AVID at the middle school and our 7th graders to keep it going up at the high school. We also have a number of college field trips coming up. Our AVID kids from across the district are going to UCLA, CSU Channel Islands, UCSB, and UC Santa Cruz. So we're really getting our kids out there. And then finally, if you think about springtime, our AVID kids are beginning to get responses back on some of the junior colleges or 4-year colleges that they may be attending next year. So we really look forward to giving you a list of some of those opportunities for our kids next time we're together.
Thanks. We'll look forward to receiving it. Mr. Unger.
Thinking about the language arts adoption, I'm assuming this is our elementary reading. And there was a large article in the New York Times last week about parents being concerned how students are learning reading. How are we doing on that? And for example, are we looking at continuing the Lucy Calkins programming? You know, can you give me a little bit of a preview on that?
I see Mr. Mayfield walking to the microphone.
Got a big smile on his face.
He's got some details for you that I think will be helpful.
We have a dynamic group of teachers compiled for the reading committee. And one of the first things we said to them is, you know, look around the room. Like, we didn't ask for the sheep to come forward to help us with this process. We wanted the people who are experts in the field, who have strong opinions about reading. The first day, the entire day, we spent going over data, reading articles, talking about what ideally would be in a reading curriculum. And then, you know, we've gone from there. We had another day of looking at data, of looking at all the different programs that are out there and available. I would like to say that there's one program that just stands out that everybody's going to be in agreement. This is it. If we get this, you know, it's going to happen and it's going to be great. And it's just not the case. And what is going to be critical, I think, is going to be the professional development series that we develop to help teachers learn like all the components that make high quality reading instruction. And we did have a group take a look at the revised Lucy Calkins reading units of study for K2, but we're trying to look for a curriculum that goes from kindergarten to 5th grade. 6th grade is in that secondary curriculum piece, but kindergarten through 5th grade. And we've narrowed it down to 3, as Mrs. Frost pointed out. And we're hoping to get that down to 2 to pilot next year.
So we're thinking about, I'm assuming we're thinking about a program that not only balances phonics, but also tries to engender the love of reading, which I think level literacy did. You know, we don't want to go back to, what was it, the early 2000s when we had the scripted reading programs, you know, and people complained, rightfully so. It was, you know, that it was excessively boring and not necessarily meeting the needs of children.
Well, one of the things we've discussed is the importance that the curriculum is a tool where teachers are not responsible for teaching the curriculum. They're responsible for teaching the standards, and they use the curriculum to do that. So there are many different resources that they can use. And a lot of them are saying exactly what you're saying, Ms. Runger, which is we want to keep independent reading happening too, because kids love books and we want to keep that passion for reading going. So, and then we may end up keeping the writing units of study to go along with whatever reading curriculum that we come up with. And we'll be, of course, keeping the board informed next year. And then when we get to the stage of looking at an adoption, probably late next spring, that'll come in front of the board as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Right. Our next item is 8.03, measures C and D updates.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. We do have a Morro Bay High School grand opening for their new cafeteria, multi-purpose room. So we'll be sending invites out to the board. It'll be on May 1st. They're going to do kind of a soft opening the Friday before and then kind of a grand opening that Monday. So again, very exciting, right? Kitchens. You heard him talk a little bit about Slow High is coming up next. So we'll do that there as well. This week we've been meeting with the architects. So the board approved phase 1 projects at each of the elementary schools, the 2 middle schools, as well as Pacific Beach High School. So we're now sitting down with the selected architects, reviewing the projects with them, the budgets, the fees. And so we will then, after this kind of initial conversation, we get back together, we settle on that. We'll be bringing those agreements to the board, the fee schedules, projects, those types of things. And then the next phase is really in about a week. We start meeting at the actual sites. We start setting up the, conversations between the architects and the site and the principal and the teachers and the parents and those types of things. So that's all, again, just kicking off Measure C as we proceed. So it's exciting, very exciting.
Thank you. All right, next is item 9.01, board priority 1, the LCAP overview.
Mandy, I might need some help finding this presentation. All right, thank you. And thank you for your patience while we pulled that up. We are with you for, I think, our 4th presentation on the LCAP. So the Local Control Accountability Plan, and Mr. Mayfield and I are going to be talking about our progress on the plan and our overview. Each year we create an overview of the LCAP, and this is the last step before you receive the actual goals, action items, and specific metrics. So we'll go through that now. I do want to remind you that we are looking at a 3-year LCAP. We are currently in year 2, and we are writing for year 3. At this point, we make minor changes to the LCAP. It's next year when a real deep dive will happen and far greater changes will be made to the LCAP. And then maybe one more thing I'd want to remind you about is we're really required to focus on 3 different groups. We look at our socioeconomically disadvantaged kids, we look at our English learners, and we look at our foster homeless youth. So you will see those kids and services for them throughout the LCAP, while we also really do look at every student in San Luis Coastal.
So we had a great round of collecting and gathering information. We've tweaked this process every year with the intent of garnering more input, and especially from the groups most affected by the LCAP. And so this year we had almost 800 completed surveys, and that's just the surveys was 800. Then we met individually with lots of different groups, including DLAC, individual school ELACs, the Student Senate, the Common Ground, well, we didn't do the Common Ground Advisory Task Force this year, we have in the past, but we did with the equity team, we did with the LCAP advisory committee, and with the district Title I advisory committee. So all of that input is in addition to the 800 surveys that we received. And you can see the breakdown here by elementary, middle, and high school, and then the percentages of parents versus staff versus community. The percentages of respondents who identified themselves as socioeconomically disadvantaged or receiving free and reduced lunch. 23% that identified as EL and 3% as homeless foster youth. And all of those numbers are higher than they were last year. The elementary number is about the same, and then the middle and high school replies went up. But every other category higher than it was in the previous year. And we'll just continue to tweak that process and go for increased participation in those in years to come.
Okay, this document here is the LCAP overview. And if you click on your link, if you happen to have that up, you will see the overview itself. This is a long document that kind of summarizes broad categories if we go through this. We start at the top with our focus areas. San Luis Coastal has 3 focus areas for our LCAP, followed by 3 goals. In green, we talk about stakeholder input and exactly what we're hearing from the groups that Rick spoke about previously. You see students, parents and community, and staff input. And then just to give you an idea, he really shared with you that we received thousands of points of comments from our stakeholders. We have an LCAP advisory group that Rick works with. They take that data and they come up with these broad categories. That is followed by our outcomes, which are really our metrics. As I said earlier, we're in year 2, writing for year 3. We do minor tweaks to our metrics. In fact, we really want them to hold firm from year to year so that we can follow that progress. And then the last section is our categories for actions. These are broad categories where many, many action items will be found under each to support the goal. What you will find is that these broad categories under each focus areas will be found on every site single plan for student achievement. So we have that connection between the LCAP plan and what's going on all of our sites. So if we start at the top, Rick and I thought we might just give you an idea of some of the stakeholder input, the outcomes, metrics, and action items for each of the focus areas. So focus area 1 is that rigorous, relevant, and engaging instruction and curriculum. Our stakeholders gave us varied feedback. You'll see that we have student feedback at the top. They are very, very vocal about what they'd like to see in their classrooms. And I won't read everything, but just to give you some highlights: more choice in learning activities, more diversity on campuses, quicker pace, fewer notes, more activities, summer school programs. So that's from our students. Our parent community wants small class sizes, real life relevant learning, quality feedback, and communication from teachers. And our staff in that area want small class sizes, no combos. They want to strengthen the EL program, keep their planning days. All really good feedback for us to get from our stakeholders. In terms of metrics, on focus area 1, we are looking at, among other things, our CASP results, our LPAC results, the number of CTE courses that our kids take, the fact that our teachers are appropriately assigned. All sorts of things like that help us determine our progress in this area. And then categories for action: strengthen teachers' depth and knowledge and supporting implementations of standards, strengthen classroom instruction, enhance hands-on integrated learning, what we hear across the board, and a couple of others that you can read on your own. Rick, you want to talk a little bit about focus area 2?
Sure. Mrs. Frost led the activity with the Student Senate, and I was sorry that I couldn't be there because I was really impressed by the feedback and the comments that the students made. And just to go over in focus area number 2, which is that all LCAP identified student groups will achieve substantial academic gains through a multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS program. And students were asking for, and it's interesting, that second bullet there, public speaking opportunities, that was listed several times. They'd like opportunities to get up in front of the class. They'd like opportunities to get out there in public. They talked about enrichment and intervention programs after school in all subject areas, but especially in math. Counseling comes up frequently. And I think we saw that last year with elementary. This year, the students brought that out. They also talked about mental health resources. They listed several things, but we synthesized that here into mental health resources. And then, of course, busing was one of our biggest obstacles to even having interventions at all, and they listed that as well. If you look at the parent support, you'll see similar things, individualized support, remediation, excelling, math intervention, after-school opportunities, the arts, VAPA would be the arts, and then training for intervention staff. And then under staff input, similar types of things. They would like to see more MTSS activities happening at the middle and secondary level. And we are kind of heavy now at the elementary level. They like win time, which is what I need time, where all students move around to get the instruction at the level that they need. And then tutoring support, math intervention, et cetera. If you looked again at the metrics, it's very similar to what you see in goal number 1. We have a special metric for our dual immersion programs. We don't have academic metrics in there because they use all the same metrics that we do for English language arts and math and science and social studies. So they have all the same metrics for that. And then again, the categories for actions are listed there at the bottom. And I believe at the May 2nd meeting, we'll be bringing to you the budget actions goals document, which will give us the individual actions that fall under these categories, A through F.
Okay. Looks like we have some questions. I have Mr. Unger, Mr. Buckman, and Ms. Vogler-Drew.
Yes, thank you. Mrs. Frost, as you know, I sent you a question earlier this week. Under outcomes in focus area number 2, under additional metrics, we say number of students subgroups who take AP classes. And I was wondering why we haven't included classes with dual enrollment, because I'm just going to personally share with you that I think that's as important as the number of AP classes that our students are taking.
You know, our metrics can change as we go into a new, I guess, series next year. So when we start creating the LCAP, we can look at dual enrollment as a possibility. We did not include it a couple of years ago. I think there are probably different reasons why we might not have. I did consult with a couple of people this afternoon. Our dual enrollment courses are dependent in part on the ability of a teacher to teach them. So we do have variance in the number of dual enrollment courses that are offered year to year. So when we talk about metrics that we want to track, that one has a little bit less stability. I can't say that's not the same for AP, but our AP courses do hold firm a little bit more than our dual enrollment courses do. That said, it is something that we could add if we wanted to track them. I think the last thing I would say is there are things that we track as metrics that don't find themselves in the LCAP document, that do find themselves in front of the board, right? How many kids are participating in our youth athletic programs? What is, things like that, other metrics that we can use in the district that don't necessarily find themselves in the LCAP.
Thank you.
Mark, then Eve.
A lot of work. I always like to ask this question. I hope I should have asked it earlier this week to let you guys know I was going to ask it, but roughly how much outreach did you, so how many meetings could parents attend? How many meetings were staff? All of that.
Yeah. So Mr. Pinkerton and Mrs. Frost go around to all the sites and do staff meetings and garner input there. We push out the LCAP survey several different times to everybody in the community and our district parents. as well as staff. So the QR code, all that kind of thing. And then when we conducted DLAC, when we conducted the site individual ELAC meetings and things like that, that's all parents. And they're also given, even though we did the activities there and had the conversations there and gathered input from them, we also gave them the QR code so that they could do the survey as well. But, my experience has been that those conversations are really valuable. So when you're around in a group of parents and you're talking about, what kinds of things can we do in terms of intervention to help your children, I think it elicits, more thoughtful responses and people feed off one another. And so you see that level of participation that you might not get in simply completing a paper survey.
And then two things that I always look at the word search for communication and engagement. And I'm glad that it always shows up and it's here. The other thing that I noticed that is working more with diversity. So diversity training and staff, the students ask for more. Anyway, the word hire more bilingual diverse students, teachers. It's amazing how many people are asking us to just dig into that. And that's just great. And I can't thank you enough. It's just amazing to watch this process grow. I just hope this isn't one of those programs the state puts forward and just when we get hold of it, the state goes, oops, we're going to change it. So I'm really glad that this is growing.
Ms. Doberdrup.
I just want to add emphasis to the need for that public speak. I'm so glad this, I don't know why they are, but the students are asking for that. That's wonderful. Because I was at the Cal Poly panel discussion that Christine Robertson of our foundation invited the board members to. And the subject of it was the chat GDP and how AI can be used to write complete student papers. So after a couple of hours of debate, it seemed that the direction to go in to see that the students master the subject matter is to have them actually stand up and do a presentation orally. So just a heads up that that's what they're talking about it as being a good way to authenticate that the student owns the material. So public speaking is just going to be good in so many dimensions and ways.
Great point.
Thank you.
And then our last focus area, focus 3, is intentional culture of care. We had feedback like the other focus areas from students, parents, and staff. And our students, like in the other 2 areas, are very articulate about what they're interested in. Increased school spirit, community and team building, after school sports, leadership opportunities for students. Desire for students to be more acknowledged and connected with their schools. Again, just look at what these kids are telling us in this area. It really speaks volumes. Parents and community, diversity training for staff, increased counseling, especially at the middle and high school level, support to deal with hate speech, extra enrichment club sports, and exercise. And our staff are also asking for SEL, let's see, trauma-informed training on how to deal with LGBTQ, hate speech, that type of thing. So we're hearing that from our staff as well. Outcomes, you're going to hear about Healthy Kids Survey, the Youth Truth, counseling data. We bring that to the board every year. So a lot of data that we look for in this area as well. And then our categories for action, strengthen district-wide multi-tiered systems of support as it relates to social emotional, right? We have the academic, but also looking at social emotional, safe and nurturing campuses. I won't read all of them, but you can see the idea there, what we're looking for in culture of care.
Ms. Doberdrew.
In regard to the last area, categories for actions under this culture of care, D, engage and educate parents regarding district academic and social emotional programs and parent education opportunities. Can you say more about the kinds of trainings that are being done so far? Or is that something we need to push into for this coming?
That'll be at the next meeting. We'll have the budget actions goals document, which will be all of the activities that we're planning for the coming year. under each one of those headings in that bottom portion. So where it says, what letter was it, Ms. Stover?
D.
D. So where it says letter D, you can find that in the document that we'll present to the board at the May 2nd meeting. And all the activities that we're going to do will be enumerated in there.
Okay, thanks.
Bet.
So as I said, this is, you go ahead. This is, this is presentation number 4, and we have a couple of more to go. And I think Rick is going to talk to you a little bit about what's coming next.
This is our roadmap, and we're on 418, of course, doing the overview document. All of these documents are considered drafts until we have our public hearing and our second reading, and the board approves the documents. At the May 2nd meeting, we'll review the goals, actions, and items and the budget with the board. And then on the 16th, we'll hold the public hearing and do our first reading of the entire LCAP. And then on the 30th, our second reading and hopefully approval of the LCAP. And then it's due to the County Office of Education by the 30th of June. And then we usually do hear back from the county sometime over the summer, later in the summer, I would say, with, hey, what about this or that? And there's usually 3 or 4 items that they ask us to address, which we do in a letter and send it back to the superintendent of the county.
Mr. Unger.
It seems to me, I recall that one of the changes over the past few years with the LCAP is that we address the outcomes and we address progress toward the outcomes. Am I remembering that correctly? And will we see that as we look at this year's LCAP and think about progress for next year's LCAP?
Yes, you will see that. And then my understanding is in the next 3-year cycle that we'll have to directly identify the outcomes to the activities that occurred in the LCAP, and then therefore decide which activities we're going to keep based on their effectiveness and which are going to go. That'll be in the next 3-year cycle, but you will see that in the meetings coming up.
Thank you. This was just a discussion item, and I'd like to make sure there's no one from the public or from here present with us who has a question or wishes to address this item. Thank you. Thanks very much. We're all LCAP all the time. All right. Next is our I Innovate initiative update. Everyone from the audience is now, the room is now emptied because everyone's up here. All right. Thank you. You look like you're gonna break into song. Thank you.
Okay, great to see all of you tonight. I'm going to introduce the crowd. And we are taking bits and pieces of the presentation. So we have, this is Sasha Jefferson. She's one of the I Innovate instructional aides. And then Katie Peters, one of the I Innovate TOSAs. And Sarah Garcia, the other I Innovate TOSA. And then this is Hiram Burris, one of the other I Innovate aides. And he was having a flashback to when he was a student senator in this room. So one of our own. And then Marcy Badal and Leslie O'Connor are going to share about secondary. So we have a big group, but it's a great presentation just to give you a little update on the work of I Innovate this year. So as a reminder, I Innovate, it's an integrated approach to learning based on standards and really trying to connect that to relevant real world experiences and career technical education in hands-on type experiences for students. So integrated units that bring in hands-on work and real world connections. So why I Innovate? We heard it in Youth Truth that students want this type of learning. And we've heard it from families. I heard it in the LCAP presentation. Content knowledge matters. And it's interesting, Mr. Unger, that you brought up the New York Times article about reading. Because one of the kind of things out there right now too is that it can't just be about phonics, it has to be about knowledge. So we know that that matters. Business leaders are sharing that students need these types of skills. And then also it's looking towards the future. So really at the elementary level, there were 4 big priorities for iInnovate this year. The learning experience designers, so the teachers, and getting out and supporting them. The equitable entry task exposure. And so that is where Mr. Burris and Ms. Jefferson come in, helping with that. Unit development and refinement and student IT teams. So I'm going to turn it over to the TOSAs to share a little bit more about the goals and what has been accomplished this year.
So our learning experience designers, we call them our LED teachers, and we really couldn't do this without them. We have 52, as you can see, and we meet with them regularly. So we had the pleasure of kicking off at ACI Jets, and then we meet with teachers throughout the year anytime that they might need us. So they're working on units that Sarah and I have developed that are integrated and hands-on. And really, we couldn't do this work without them. They're willing to take a risk. They all volunteered to sign up to do this in the last 2 years and give these units a try. So we meet with them by site. We meet with them individually. So you can see some of the data of seeing them over 80 times. So we'll come out and help them plan out a lesson, maybe teach part of it, kick off the lesson with co-construction, all sorts of different things. That picture is a kindergartners from Hawthorne. We just had the pleasure of taking them to Ace Hardware on Friday. They're learning about the construction that needs that in their community. And so Sarah and I, along with volunteers and their teacher, safely crossed Broad Street 2 ways and took them to Ace, and it was a great day. So it's that hands-on real world experience. And we couldn't do our job without the LED teachers. So we just want to give them a shout out, and the work they're doing is incredible to bring this to their students. And we just hope to continue to grow that number over time.
So we have our entry tasks that are led by Sasha and Hiram. And these entry tasks are done with the classroom teacher. And so it's a great learning opportunity for teachers to learn the equipment or different things in the lab, but it's also an amazing experience for students. They're getting in 8 times into the lab, and they're learning something new each time. They're learning to collaborate. They're learning virtual reality, coding, various other tasks. Recently, that's a photo of the latest entry task where they learned about the laser cutter and how to design something collaboratively, which was a challenge, but it turned out beautiful. They hand drew a lot of this art, and they decided as a team what they would like to be their team's design. And so that is on the bead for the bracelet, which we are selling at open house. We did a few already. We did Teach Elementary and we did Hawthorne Elementary. And it turned out amazing. We sold out, and all of that money is going back into buying materials for the lab for next year. So it's just amazing to keep going. And Hiram and Sasha have been such an asset, and we're really grateful for their expertise. I learn from them every day. So.
And this video is just going to kind of move through what our website looks like. So with another part of our job that we do is this unit development. So going back to the LED teachers, these teachers are working on these units that Sarah and I have developed. And so the units are an integration with a focus on science and social studies. And we're asking them to give it a try, see what it does. It takes care of the standards in those subject areas through using our pacing guide. So like each trimester, it's kind of broken down that way. But it gives those students a really hands-on learning situation. And we're also working with Michael McDowell when he's been here to get kids to that transfer idea. So looking at surface deepened transfer, learning about co-construction, making sure our students really with us as we're going. And what we are really proud of is kind of working through that K-12 continuum and focusing on some of that CTE connection. And you'll hear that more from Leslie and Marcy, but really making sure that kids have an open opportunity to know what's out there for them. So we run into students sometimes that they don't know what they don't know. And we give them that opportunity, like, this is what a 3D printer does. And they learn that in second grade. And so it's just neat for students to understand that there are things out there. And we are, again, like using these units, sharing them with everybody, making sure that all teachers have these ideas and can go over and use them with our help or on their own, and just continue to allow it to be out there for everybody.
So we also have student innovation teams that we started at the start of this year. These are students that applied. Everybody got in, but they volunteer their lunchtime to spend with Katie and I. And we do various things inside of the lab. We train them on the equipment, and they do a lot of leadership opportunities at the school as well, where they're touring people that might be new to the school, or other people that might want to see the innovation space. And so they really have ownership over that space, which has been amazing to see. We've taken a field trip in January to SLO High School, where the student innovation team members got to see all the different CTE pathways that are available at SLO High School. And so that was really neat because they got to see some of the things that they're working on in the innovation lab, like coding or robotics or laser cutting, 3D printing. They actually got to see that in action at the high school level. And I think the thing that resonated with us the most after that trip was when a student said, how much does it cost to go here? And so for us, that just speaks volumes to the opportunities that we have here in our district, but also the excitement level of these students. They were ready to enroll tomorrow. A lot of them picked out their favorite classes. They're still talking about it. And in fact, we were with an innovation team today, and they were talking about how they can't wait to take their coding to the next level in middle school, and what are we going to do? And so it's been really, really amazing to see this unfold. They made their own t-shirts with a logo that they designed graphically, and then the graphic design class actually helped them to screen print their own shirts. And then the other picture is they're getting a tour of the kitchen with chef. And then also they were a huge part in getting all of those bracelets laser cut because it does take time to laser cut. And so they laser cut a lot of those bracelets, and you can see that a student there is working on getting the images over, getting them laser cut, and then they assembled them for their school-wide project. So the student innovation teams were inspired by students. They said, we want more of this. And so this was our pilot year of this, and we're continuing with students and going to wrap it up. But I'd like to now bring it to the middle school of like what's coming next with all of
Before you step away, it's like Mr. Buckman and Ms. Dover Drew.
So just
questions.
3 letters, WOW. It's great. So the type of student that came out to be on the IT team, can you talk about those students and what they were like before and what they, you know where I'm going.
Yeah, I can tell you stories forever.
no.
But before, a lot of these students, they've never used this equipment, or they were intimidated, to be honest. When I first said, okay, we're going to do this school-wide laser cutting project, they looked at the laser cutter and they're like, we're gonna do it. And now, by the time we got rolling, they're like, step aside, this is our little zone, and you just, stand in the back, Miss Garcia. So it's been really amazing to see them take ownership of the space and get more comfortable with the equipment in the space. And it's been a transformation for sure.
Let me so are these the typical class leaders, or is this a different type of kid that's coming forward?
We have all types of students from all different backgrounds in the innovation team. And I wouldn't say it's a specific type of student.
Right.
We just, whoever was interested in learning more.
Okay, great,
Mhm.
thanks.
And Ms. Dobler-Drew.
So the bracelets were the subject of the entrepreneurial task that you spoke of. And so then they created the bracelets, and then is there a marketing element to the entrepreneurship?
This year, so this is our first year in doing this production. And so the students know they've been created, but Sarah, Hiram, Sasha, and myself are going to the open houses. And so we're kind of manning that booth, if you will, where we're allowing students and families to purchase those. And so the students know like our price point and what we've done with it, but we're helping them since they're showing their families through open house.
But perhaps it could be developed to an understanding of how to market. the
Some of
product.
going back to those lessons that we've written and the units that we've written for our LED teachers, we have sort of a business entrepreneurship thread throughout trimester 3. So our future plan is at open houses or even working with the high school CTE programs and a makers or marketplace, if you will, is to have students be able to sell and experience that entrepreneurship like idea and how they can make a profit. So we did this a little bit. So Baywood last week had a STEAM night, and the 4th grade and 5th grade students there made lanterns. So this is again one of the units that we had written. And so it's a wooden lantern, and they're learning about circuitry. So they've wired the circuit and the light that goes on inside, and then they laser cut the 4 sides of this lantern, and it represented the 4 regions of California. So it's kind of a 4th grade unit. And then they sold them at their STEAM night. And so it was really interesting to see like why they were so proud of it and what they liked about it. One student's minimum bid, $25. We thought that was awfully cute. But they also had a profit margin, or they had a breakdown, the cost budget sheet, where they knew how much everything cost and then what their profit would be. So they're starting to learn those things.
Right. Their passion will connect to their ability to market the product.
Absolutely.
So if they get that one thing, that'll be huge.
And we
then I
had an
just-
opportunity at the gala a little bit as well as through elementary, middle school, and high school where students were sharing their things there.
And the connection to CTE, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I came into this board saying, let's have more CTE longitudinally.
They're doing a fantastic job. We're happy to be a little part of that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So we're going to have an opportunity to talk about what's going on at the secondary level. And I'm going to turn it over to Marcy Badal. Marcy is our CTE TOSA, has done an amazing job leading that push with regard to middle school. Our innovation at middle school was really to think outside the box. Marcy's going to talk about the new courses that we added both at Laguna and Los Osos Middle School, but also thinking outside the box about offering classes outside of the regular day. Because that's the next iteration. When do we provide those enrichment opportunities to students who have a very impacted schedule or a very impacted life? Maybe it's in the afternoon, maybe it's in the evening, maybe it's at the weekend. That's that next iteration. So I'll turn it over to Marcy. Marcy, here you go.
Good evening, everybody. So as you can see, our expansion into our middle school CTE wheel kind of process, and you had mentioned, board member, about that kind of articulation, I think is really important. We don't want to lose the momentum that they're getting from iInnovate. Sarah and Katie spoke to this a little bit. The field trips that they brought to their iInnovate teams were incredible. Besides just giving those students an opportunity to see, and the story that they referenced was a group of girls as I was leaving, like, how much does the school cost? And it's like, it's free. It's free. We can do all of this for free. But it also gave our teachers an opportunity to interact. And we had subsequently also done a professional development with our secondary teachers, our secondary CTE teachers, with Katie and Sarah in the iInnovate lab at Del Mar Elementary. And our teachers walked away with so many ideas of how they themselves can articulate their own CTE pathway, which was incredible, of how they could integrate what the iInnovate teams are doing at the elementary level and how that would correlate with our classes, which again, just goes to the piece of the articulation and making sure that we're not skipping a beat. I was 40 years old before I saw a 3D printer or a laser cutter. These are, first graders that are being able to use these machines is just incredible. So you can see the offerings that we are now having at Laguna Middle School: computer science, heavy focus on robotics. That certainly correlates with San Luis Obispo High School. We have an incredible robotics program at San Luis Obispo High School. Culinary and finance, they focus a lot, obviously, on the culinary and kind of leading towards that tourism. So that finance piece is really, really important. It's not just, I think of, at least in the 90s when I was in high school, it was just, you bake, you kind of cook. This is such a robust program that it's not just about that. It's also, how can you then go sell a product? If you wanted to open a restaurant, what does that look like? So it really just takes it that step further. It's, again, not just learning how to use a measuring cup or how to use an oven. So that finance piece is really important. And then engineering and aviation. I believe the iInnovate team talked about just kind of our district-wide partnership with ACI Jet and wanting to kind of grow that more, but certainly something that we're already utilizing. And then you can see the many classes offered here at Los Osos Middle School: digital design, and again, 3D modeling. Again, having that connection with what they're doing in the iInnovate program in our elementary schools: journalism, design, yearbook. Again, robotics, certainly a heavy focus on robotics and coding. Video production, which correlates with Morro Bay High School. Morro Bay High School has a brand new, beautiful video production space. And so that correlates perfectly. And then the esports model, which I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with that. I used to be the athletic director at San Luis Obispo High School. So this was something that we talked about in our whole county, athletics wide, is this esports model. So it's great to be able to offer that at Los Osos Middle School.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions from Mr. Clausen and Mr. Banfield.
Mr. Clausen's on Zoom, correct?
Yeah.
Hi, Mr.
Yep.
Clausen.
Hi, over here on the
Yep.
TV screen. Yes.
Over
Hi. Here on the TV screen. Yeah. Hi. Okay, I'm getting a little background or a little echo, but getting a little background or a little echo, but so what I wanted to ask was my understanding is the iInnovate program's 3 years old now. I just wanted to make sure that was correct. 3 years old now. And then make sure that was correct. And then I just wanted to get feedback from you guys on how is it progressing so far, and really what's the next couple years look like? Are we tracking to where you expected, and what would the next big steps be? What would the next big steps be?
You want to speak to iInnovate specifically, or yeah?
Hi. We are
Yeah.
on target, and this is, yes, our third year, and we have been working with sort of a strategic plan in the next 2 years that go into refining the unit development and making sure more teachers are on board, and that the equity to all students getting these lessons. And so we feel very on target. We're going to continue our student IT teams and working to really develop that middle school to high school development. Those are our big target areas.
Okay, and then
A little bit too,
yeah.
just kind of.
Okay, and then yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Clausen, if I can speak
Yeah.
to that a little bit as well. One of the items that I know Christine Robertson and I have spoken about, and I met with Katie and Sarah about, in addition to that professional development that we did at Del Mar Elementary, our teachers were tasked with coming up with a project, not necessarily something that they had to implement this year into their classrooms, but something to look forward to that they all collaborated on. of being able to have a model for their classroom of how their students can make money. How can they market that? What does that look like? I think that's really important. We're teaching these students amazing skills that certainly would transfer to the job market, but how can they go out if I'm a senior in high school and I'm taking the digital photography class, how can I make money right now as an 18-year-old? And what does that look like? Teaching a student how to create a business model. What is insurance? You know, what would be your price point? Who's your audience? Just teaching them all of those things. And I know we talked about taking a field trip of sorts down to Ventura. They have, it's kind of like a Shark Tank model, but for K through 12 students in Ventura County, which I think is incredible and something that would be really interesting to eventually develop here. So again, having those students not just learning the skills, but also being able to market them. So Mr. Clausen, to your point of kind of where do we see this continuing to grow, I think we do an amazing job of teaching students, you know, again, these skills that they can take out into the real world, but how can we also help them market themselves to earn money as an 18-year-old, as a 16-year-old, which I think is a really powerful thing as well.
Mr. Banfield.
I'm curious about engineering and aviation. What does that look like?
That looks amazing. To be perfectly frank, we have 3 periods of engineering and aviation available to students at Laguna Middle School with a fantastic teacher. We partner with a program called Project Lead the Way. And it is a program where students are designing and creating objects of flight within a classroom. You sit in that room and you're watching students. My son was in that class, so I know it very, very well. But they're coming home and they're talking about how do they tackle a problem to get something to fly. And they're looking at the math behind it, they're looking at the physics behind it, and they're looking at the application. And so that's a key point for us, is how do we have application of skill? When we look at our student senators at the secondary level, what we hear over and over and over again is application. They're crying out for where does this apply to wherever I want to go? And we're trying to have that conversation with all of our teachers so that there's a connectivity and a connection. So that's hopefully answering your question with aviation.
Ms. Dover-Drew.
So in regard to the financial program, which you're extolling the virtues of, and which is something that I also have wanted since day one or before I came on the board. Do you see extending that more broadly than in the culinary path, CTE path?
Yeah, if you're familiar with virtual business, so there's an amazing program out there educationally. It's called the Virtual Business Program, and there are many schools, high schools and middle schools, that are part of a virtual business model, where students each year will actually create a business plan, a business model, and they actually compete both in the state of California and across the country. And many of the schools are invited to a competition that centers around New York City. That's something that we've looked at and maybe explore a little bit and see if we can build into. It also means that those students, when they're involved in virtual business, are utilizing their economic skills. And a lot of times the virtual business class can then substitute that economics requirement for graduation. So that's within that realm of possibility also.
Yeah, just as an aside for this, I was sitting next to an economics professor at Cal Poly when I heard Ms. Robertson on the panel about ChatGPT, and you were there. And I asked her about financial expertise programs at Cal Poly. She's in economics, remember? She said they canceled that 30 years ago. I'm going, what? How do they learn how to be business entrepreneurs? So if we can at least teach it to our kids, they'll be that much ahead.
Okay. The second piece that we would love to focus on, Marcy, if you want to come and talk about, is yeah. There you go.
You're right, it's not working. There you go. Okay. So the second piece is our middle school modules. And Leslie and the previous CTE, TOSA, Liz Moore had applied for a grant that allowed for us, it was a K-12 workforce grant that allowed for us to complete these modules. And I believe, Mr. Buckman, I believe you came the night that we launched the rockets. in our engineering class. So you can see all of our offerings there. We had graphic design, engineering, and aerospace design. Just a point, both of those classes were taught by bilingual instructors, which was just incredible to be able to have that be taught and have that be as an option. It wasn't primarily taught in Spanish. It wasn't dual immersion, but the primary, and you can see that we had 70 plus 7th and 8th grade students. Those any student was able to sign up. We sent it out via Parent Square. Mr. Meinert had it in his parent update on Sunday. So any student was allowed to sign up. Certainly it was open to anyone, but we also utilized our CTE middle school counselor, and she went out and recruited students. She went into the AVID classes. She did such an incredible job that we ended up having 70 students really just signed up because of her. And then we had a couple other students. Leslie's son was signed up to attend one of the classes. And I would say 98% of the students were Hispanic, Latinx students. Many of them were SED, many of them were EL. And so to be able to have the classes taught not only potentially in Spanish, but also by somebody, they were primarily taught by Cal Poly fellows. So these were Cal Poly volunteers that we work with that are cleared through our district, and we work with them with our Athletics for Achievement program. So it was such a, again, Mr. Beckman, you were there, and you got to experience it. Certainly you can speak of your experience, but there's something special about junior high students, high school students. They have that just connection with college students in a little bit of a different way than when it's an old lady like me. And they just really look up to them and listen so intently. And then to also have that aspiration when they see a student that looks like them, talks like them, maybe had a similar background, similar experience as them, and says, they're majoring in engineering at Cal Poly. This is something I can do. Again, it just is really, really transformational. We also offered auto mechanics and maintenance, and then digital photography as well. And majority, again, were staffed by Cal Poly fellows. We did have one adult, we call him the adult teacher, who is a substitute in our area. And that was the class that Leslie's son took. And he did a great job as well. But it was a 6-week course. We met once a week for 2 hours, again, at San Luis Obispo High School. And we're getting ready to do round 2 again. And this time we'll be able to offer auto mechanics at Morro Bay High School for Los Osos students as well. Part of our, I'm sure one of the questions is, why did you only do it at San Luis Obispo High School? Which I'm sure, is a valid question, because we utilize the fellows. And I'm not sure, I think Leslie, I believe in the past has talked about the fellows program, but many of the Cal Poly students don't have transportation. Many of them don't have their driver's license even. So to be able to get the transportation to come over to Morro Bay for that first round was just something that we were troubleshooting. And now we'll be able to offer a course at Morro Bay this next round as well for Los Osos Middle School students. So,
Mr. Unger, did you have a question?
My question was answered about the plans for including the coast in this. Thank you.
Ms. Dover-Drew, then Mr. Banfield.
Yes, about shooting up rockets. They don't have to go too far down to SpaceX for their career. So might there be field trips to SpaceX to look?
Yeah, I mean, remember the middle school classes or the modules were offered in the evening. So students were coming in the evening. Remember that. So it wasn't like it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This was 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on a Monday evening. So they were choosing to be there. But as well as that, it leads us into giving them that experiential opportunity and a field trip to be able to go to and fill in the blank. And that's our goal, is to hook the students in. And then we have to also mention the fact that the reason why it works is because we've got amazing facilities at both of our high schools now. We can't forget that. Like, we really have built out comprehensive facilities in our career technical education field that can be utilized in the evening. So kudos to both schools for that.
Thank you. Mr. Banfield, then Mr. Buckman, then Mr. Clausen.
Regarding the auto mechanics and maintenance, now that's being taught over at the high school. That's evening. How long do those sessions last?
so the classes were from 5 to 7 in the evenings, and we did Monday nights for 6 weeks.
And regarding mechanics, the auto mechanics maintenance, is it more maintenance or is it mechanics as well?
It's mechanics as well. We had, I think, 20 engines delivered to our office one day. Leslie walked in, huge, engines that we, took down. And so it was, absolutely. And one of the things too, I was going to mention is with all of these classes, these all align. Again, we did this first round at San Luis Obispo High School. All of these classes align with our CTE classes at San Luis Obispo High School. And we had our slow high teachers mentor these Cal Poly fellows. So they worked with our slow high teachers before they ever taught a class. They worked with them for 10 hours and they worked on lesson plans. They showed them their spaces. They showed them what was available before they ever even stepped foot into the classroom. So it was a good collaboration too, again, between Cal Poly students and our own teachers.
So let's say you've got a core of students that really get lit up by auto mechanics and they're in this little program. Then what happens?
That's a great question. So they're now in 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
They're going to have a direct connection with their enrollment process as they come into high school with Auto 1, Auto 2, Advanced Auto. They're going to have the opportunity for internships and externships. And then what's going to happen by their junior year, they're going to end up starting to teach and model to that 7th grade group. And all of a sudden, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we build that cohort to be really the advocates and ambassadors for the next group and the next group. And that's what we're seeing with the work of Katie and Sarah, because we're seeing those first, second, third graders coming our direction pretty quickly, and they're crying out for those hands-on opportunities.
Just as an aside, I'm so glad that you've got stuff like this for people who, as I say, are lit up by machines and mechanics. And I think that's really good.
Thank you. Mr. Buckman, then Mr. Clausen, then Mr. Unger.
I feel like I've spoken to this already, but I'm going to speak to it again. As we were doing Measure D and building these great facilities, I went to Morro Bay High School, and I think a lot of the alignment shops and tire dealers were at Morro Bay High School learning to use, because we had the newest equipment in the county. So that was kind of cool. But then the other thing was when I went to see the program at San Luis High, and they talk about lit up. I mean, you couldn't pull them away, but I was going to leave early, and is in AmeriCorps. There's a young lady there that runs. She said, "No, wait. And they brought out one of the rockets. Okay, so this is a plastic soda bottle, the big ones. The kids designed the fins. They did everything that they needed to turn this into a rocket. And I thought, oh yeah, okay. Because the fuel was water, the propellant was air, and the one that I saw launched probably went 5 stories high. So it really is. And the most exciting thing for me is to see the classrooms being used, what I would call after 3 p.m., but after hours, and the beginning of the students coming up from but maybe someday we have, mother and daughter working on their car, changing the oil, learning how to change the oil. So, I mean, we have the best facilities in the county right now. So thanks for what you're doing.
Beckman, I can speak to that too. When I first came here, I'm from Clovis originally. I've been here for 7 years. My car broke down. I called AAA and it happened to be a San Luis Obispo High School alumni. He said, "Well, where do you need me to tow your car?" I was like, "Well, I teach at Slow High." And he was like, "Oh, tow it to Slow High. Yeah. They will fix it better than any shop in town," which is incredible. So I was like, sweet.
Glad to know that.
Okay, Mr. Clausen.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, just these programs are really relevant and important. So it's exciting to see this, and thank you. My question's probably more of a new board member question, but can you give me a little perspective on iInnovate versus the CTE programs at the secondary level, and are they directly coordinated, or are they just logical progressions of each other?
A little bit of both, to be perfectly honest, Mr. Clausen. Logical progression, next iteration, When we're looking at I Innovate at elementary and building that link into middle school for secondary innovation, it becomes more formalized in middle school. One of our goals is to develop our career technical education pathway access in middle school. It's a natural segue for students to be able to take that introductory class formally in middle school, which will allow them to have greater access in high school. We're a K-12 district, so there should be clear integration and vertical alignment. And this is just where we're at in year 3. I would say by year 4, 5, and 6, it'll become seamless. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, do you expect there'll be 2 discrete programs? Do you expect there'll be 2 discrete a K through 6 program, I Innovate, and then a K lead into CTE, or I Innovate, and then lead into CTE, or?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can see where it's going to be K6, that I Innovation, and 712 CTE is the application of.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Clausen?
No, this program's awesome.
Mr.
It's just
Dobler?
exciting to see. Thanks. Awesome. It's just exciting to see. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Unger, then Ms. Dobler.
So sort of thinking about what you just said, how does this relate and how are you encouraging students to integrate this into their 4-year plans?
That's a great question. So we're starting with those upper elementary grades. I think about the work of Marcy and Jane, our secondary TOSAs, working with our EL and our SED students, working with our elementary principals with AVID enrollment. But more importantly, we have a full-time CTE counselor at our 2 middle schools, Los Osos Middle School and Laguna Middle School, and are intentionally meeting with every 7th grade student throughout this year to start that conversation around the 6-year plan as opposed to a 4-year plan. What is that 6-year plan look like? And then building those kind of conversations with next year's 7th grade. And it's about career aspirations and exploration very intentionally, because you asked the question earlier about dual enrollment and maybe why is dual enrollment not a metric, or maybe it could be a metric as opposed to AP. Well, because a lot of times we start that conversation in 8th grade about 4-year plan, but it's specific to college. And perhaps shifting that a little bit in the 7th grade to have a conversation about career aspirations. And then how does college get woven into that is really, really important. But you got to kind of spark the kid to begin with. And that's part of our 6-year conversation. Hopefully I answered that for you.
And so the I Innovate Labs would hopefully spark the students' imaginations and aspirations for those grades, leading to the CTE programs and the wheel, for example, that we have on our secondary sites starting in our middle school. So really instead of a 4-year plan, I should be talking about a 6-year plan for our secondary students. Is that really
100%. 100%.
you.
And the last piece is this, I would argue and suggest that I Innovate shouldn't just always be linked with CTE. I Innovate should be linked with sparking interest in application real world, whether it be in language arts, math, chemistry, physics. It's taking that time and providing opportunities for our students to see that linkage between what they're learning and where it comes into the real world. And that's one of the pieces that does come out of Student Senate over and over again, where students ask, where is this relevant to what I'll be needing for, a job 10, 15 years from now? It's not even being created. If you look at Ms. Dobler-Drew's comment about AI, there was no conversation about AI 2 years ago. There was no conversation about AI 5 years ago. We've got a whole industry that's going to come on to us pretty much in the next 2 to 3 years. How are we going to prepare our students who are 15, 17, 18 right now for AI when they're 21?
Right. And this is exactly, I think, what our business partners and our local businesses have been talking about in terms of the needs that they have for employees and employable skills, both the soft and the hard skills.
Absolutely. The ability to think and adapt and apply.
Thank you. Ms. Dobler-Drew.
And also the foundation support for marrying CTE and I Innovate is very strong. So we've got just a multidimensional shoring up of the program going on. So glad.
Anything else from the board? Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this? Right, Dr. Prater.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge our our team, the people in front of you here tonight. It's an evolving conversation. It's becoming more refined. And I think the board's comments and insights, I now know that you're seeing the linkages, and the timing couldn't be better, because next fall we'll start creating a new template of a new 3-year LCAP, which will embody these carefully crafted relationships that we're gathering from, and insights that we're gathering from industry, from our innovation partners, from our college and career partners. And I see it all coming together. I look forward to really designing a 21st century forward-thinking LCAP plan in the 24-25 school year. So more to come on that.
So thank you. This, it's been one of the honors I've had for being on the board for a while now, has been to see the seed of a foundation just start out as a little germ of an idea, and then watch it happen and flourish and grow and see the results on the ground. And as well, see the way look at all the talent we have right here being combined with the talent of our students and their enthusiasm and excitement and willingness to be adventurous and brave and explore these new areas. And for our team, as Dr. Prater said, to also grow along with us. And I mean, I can't imagine how much you must be learning in this process.
I think the vision of Christine Robertson and the foundation is a tremendous part of what we all do, and her connections with the community and Cal Poly and jobs in our area that we want to fulfill with our students, I think is an important part of it. So for sure, she's an integral part.
It's very exciting to watch. And seeing the foundation grow and expand in other ways as well is really wonderful. But this is the star in the crown of the foundation. So thank you so much. Thanks for sharing all this. Thank you. Right. Our next item is 9.03, appoint a board member to the San Luis Coastal Education Foundation.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Sheffer, for putting the ball on the tee. In the fall of 2018, the San Luis Coastal Education Foundation was officially established. But as Mrs. Sheffer said, the desire for a education foundation in San Luis Coastal began way back in 2010. And I remember having conversations with Dr. Catherine Eisendrath Rogers, who was quite the cheerleader for us starting a foundation. Well, it just so happens a crisis turned into an opportunity when Diablo Canyon announced, PG&E announced the closure of Diablo Canyon. As you know, we negotiated a separate $10 million fund for a education foundation. And so from that, we initially started that. We hired Christine Robertson, who is a spectacular foundation director, and doing her natural skill set is integration and ideas. And she's really done a phenomenal job of helping coalesce some of these ideas that you've witnessed here tonight. Part of the best practice of a foundation that's a separate private corporation or nonprofit, I should say, is best practice is to have a trustee on the foundation to ensure that there's alignment, there's advocacy, there's education that occurs with the separate foundation board. And so Dr. Eisendrath Rogers was our dutiful foundation rep from our school board since its inception. And so since she stepped down from the board, this is our time to appoint a new representative. And the foundation board, I sit on the executive committee. They're really excited about having representation from the board as on the foundation. So that's why we're here tonight to select a foundation, a board representative, a trustee representative on the foundation board.
This is an action item, and before I come back to the board, I'd like to see if anyone from the public has any remarks, any comments. I am looking to Ms. Dawson because we just have online folks at this point. All right, I'll come back to the board. Mr. Buckman.
Okay, thanks. So I think the relationship with the board and the foundation is just hugely important. It's proven itself with Ms. Eisendrath Rogers. And I think that in order to maintain that kind of relationship, I'd like to nominate somebody that's a long-term educator, really understands what's going on both in the classroom, a long-term board member who understands the role of the board in the community. He's been recognized statewide, was president of the California School Boards Association many years. And he understands the community. And I think that's going to be an integral part of all of this. So I'm proud to nominate my co-board member, Chris Unger, to be the representative.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you. And I would add that I would be honored to serve. I would be honored to follow in Dr. Eisendrath Rogers' footsteps.
Okay, we haven't voted yet, you know.
Well, I'm
Don't
just saying,
get ahead of
if
yourself.
the board chooses me, yes, I am a little bit over my skis, but Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, her legacy, I think, will live on as a founder of the board, the foundation board. And if I'm chosen by the board, I would accept and endeavor to follow in her footsteps.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do you have everything you need, Ms. Dawson? All right, I'm just going to go down the row here. Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman,
Yes.
Mr. Unger, Ms. Dobler-Drew, Mr. Clausen.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. And I'm a yes as well. So motion carries 6-0 with one absence. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, no, and I really, I too want to recognize that this is Dr. Eisendrath Rogers' legacy to our board. It is something she talked about and wanted and spoke of. And I will always remember when Kim McGrath, Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, and I attended the National School Foundation Association annual meeting, and Ms. McGrath and Dr. Eisendrath Rogers just seemed at home, and I thought, I need to learn a lot about this. This is a whole new world for me, but it was a great experience, and I think fondly of that, of sharing that time and learning so much from Catherine. All right, next is 9.04, approve board member pay for permissible absence.
Yeah, as you know, Mrs. Roger really would like to have been at the April 13th study session, but she's been challenged by some health issues, and I'm looking for your approval per board policy and ed code to approve this illness and allow her to earn her compensation.
I'm not going to approve her illness, but I will approve her absence.
That's what I meant. Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
So,
It's late.
I'd like to go to the public. Ms. Dawson. All right, we need a motion and a
I
second.
move approval of 9.04, approved board member pay for permissible absence.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Unger, a second by Mr. Banfield. Mr. Clausen.
Yes. Yes.
All right, Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Ms. Dobler-Drew,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Thank you. All right, next item is 9.05, request for allowance of attendance due to emergency conditions.
Well, this is my 29th year in education. And we've never had a winter like this year. I mean, to be quite honest. And so with that, we've had a couple of days, as the board knows, over the wintertime where really due to road closures and the inability of us to get students to and from school, forced us to have some tough decisions to make about closing our schools for the day. So we're asking the board to approve tonight the J13 form, which would basically give us kind of the academic hour credit for our students, for our staff, for Friday, March 10th, as well as Tuesday, March 14th, 2023.
Right, yes, those events took me back to the days of growing up in the Midwest and waking up in the morning and turning on the radio to hope for a snow day. So with that, we need a motion and a second. I should go to the public. Anyone out there wanting to comment on this? All right. Motion, please, Mr. Banfield.
I make a motion that we make this allocation.
And I'll second. All right, so, Mr. Clausen,
Yes. Yes.
just trying to keep you on your toes out there.
Yeah, there's a time lag. Yeah, when I talk. I'm sorry if I'm slow.
I know.
When I talk, so I'm sorry if I'm slow.
Oh, that's all right. No, you're fine. You're fine. Ms. Dover Drew, Mr. Unger, Mr. Buckman, Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right. Our next item is a first reading to propose revisions to Board Policy 3600.
Yes, thank you. So Board Policy 3600 is consultants. This, the changes reflect new law. It's Assembly Bill 2257. It clarifies employee versus contractor status when we're considering hiring. It also includes additional legal references, and my recommendation is that this comes back for a second read.
Right. Is there anyone from the public wishing to discuss this exciting board policy? Mr. Banfield.
I was reading it. What is a protective hairstyle?
That's actually our next board policy.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So hold that thought.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Well, I already had a conversation with Mrs. Frost about this and just looked at the nature of the kind of policy changes that we have now that would never have happened 5 to 10 years ago, but then things do change and evolve, don't they? So the fact of somebody's reproductive health being known when they apply for a job or when they're on the job, that we have to actually call it out and say you can't discriminate against it is very new kind of consideration for the workplace that never would have happened in the past. So just a little shocker for me. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Dobler Drew. I think you're speaking about Board Policy 4030, which is the next one as well. No, you guys are on the
They're-
same track, so I
they're ahead
appreciate
of
that. That's okay.
Okay.
No, it's perfectly
So-
fine.
So
So
any discussion on this one?
3600
On 36.
consultants.
Okay, do we want to bring it back for a second reading? We're okay with that? All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to proposed revisions to Board Policy 4030, non-discrimination in employment.
Exactly. And this is a required annual review. And the changes reflect new law, Senate Bill 523, which adds reproductive health decision-making as a form of prohibited discrimination. It prohibits an employer from requiring an applicant or employee to disclose information related to an employee's reproductive health decision-making. We also included the, what you were talking about, Mr. Banfield, the protected hairstyle, which belongs in here as well. That might be something that, a hairstyle that a person has to wear because of maybe their religion or their culture. And so it protects it in employment. So those are the two additions, for our annual update. And I do recommend this comes back for a second read.
Okay, once again, we'll go to the public. Right, and any board comments or questions?
Well, just about that, I followed suit with the protective hairstyle because it was in the other one that I was talking about, sorry. So I'm still trying to get back to the agenda items and find the right policy there. I was studying them this afternoon. So, yeah, so my comments are that this is a whole new perspective on things that we have to consider in the workplace now. And thank you for reworking the wording of it with the Lozanas, with Josh Whiteside. Thank you.
And
Mr.
just-
Buckman.
Thank you. And just, because this is a place where we discuss and have share our thoughts as co-members of the board, I'm really glad to start seeing things like this because decisions were made about somebody. So if somebody was pregnant or trying to get pregnant or took time off because of a reproductive, they could lose their jobs. And now we're going to make that fair across the board. There were people that lost their jobs because they wouldn't take a hair protection off. They wouldn't shave their beard. I'm just so excited for this. I have a daughter, and I don't want her to have to worry about her losing her job because she gets pregnant. I mean, that should not be a concern. So I'm excited about these things being added because it protects people that for years basically could be lose their jobs because of this kind of stuff. So I'd like to just move that we bring this back in case there's further discussion.
Thank you.
Mr. Banfield.
Just as an aside, I think I recall in history that, let's say the beginning of the 20th century and before, women, when they were hired to be teachers, they were discouraged from being married.
And to be single.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It fits in with some of these things we were talking about earlier when Ms. Dobler-Drew brought up chatbots and all of that. Things are changing. It's the way of the world. So,
I have a question.
all right, are we all in
I
agreement?
have a question.
Oh, Mr. Clausen, I'm so sorry.
Well, so I agree with
Go
the
ahead.
comments. So I agree with going on, but my clarification question is when I read this edit, it looks like it doesn't actually add reproductive health decision making. It just moves it from one area of the document to another. Or am I reading these things wrong?
So the center section that you see crossed out is language that we decided, and it is the choice of the board to add language that meets the letter of the government code without keeping exactly what Gamut added for us. So you will see in the center section, there's a much more complicated description of reproductive health decision-making, and we made it a simple phrase in the paragraph ahead. So we are meeting the requirements of government code 12-926 that requires us to add this to this board policy.
So the stricken area was not already in the policy. It was proposed to be added, and then we removed the proposed add and simplified it with a different proposed add.
That's exactly right.
Okay, thanks.
Through a conversation with me.
You'll notice that this is in green. So we do go to our legal counsel when we are considering some intensive changes to language given to us by Gamut. And in this situation, we did take that very descriptive paragraph and reduce it to what you see above.
So it touches upon, I mean,
Let's make sure Mr. Clausen's question has been answered, please.
Sorry, I heard silence.
It's not unusual when
Generally, yes, but I guess follow on would be there's parts around drug use, et cetera, that we struck intentionally then.
Yes, but we can always reference Government Code 12-926, which really does get detailed regarding that.
Okay.
We just didn't put that detail in the board policy itself.
Ms.
And,
Dover,
yeah, I'm done. Thanks.
and then Mr. Unger.
And if I may speak to that, if
don't know.
permitted, if permitted.
Go,
Did you have anything else, Eve?
he can speak.
I think Josh had a comment.
No, I'm
I think
coming.
Josh had a comment.
It was Mr. Whiteside.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that none of the other protected characteristics listed in the policy really have a call out to refer to how they might be defined. So it's really to provide consistency in how we're addressing all of the characteristics.
Anything else, Ms. Dover-Drew?
No, I think Mr. Whiteside cleared that up.
Okay, Mr. Unger.
I was just going to say, if this is important language, I think it may be more appropriately placed in our administrative regulations and refer to how we actually implement this board policy.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. I agree.
And that is our usual practice. Right. Anything else on this? Everyone all right with bringing it back for a second reading? Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteside. Right. Next, 9.08, certification to the Board of Education for temporary athletic coaches.
Yeah, good evening. Just like we have in fall and winter, I'm bringing forward the assertion from our 4 athletic directors. They're verifying that our spring coaches have completed all qualifications and competencies to be coaches, walk-on coaches or temporary coaches. We have this for your approval tonight.
Yes, this is an action item. I'd like to go to the public. Anyone from the board with questions or comments, Mr. Unger?
And so, Mr. Block, what this is referring to is the state requirements. In addition, then we have our safe sports practices that is additional to this, but not a state requirement, but a district requirement.
Precisely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Right, again, we need a motion, please.
Move approval of item 9.08, certification to the Board of Education temporary athletic coaches for 2022-23 spring sports season.
And I
I'll
have a
second.
feeling Mr. Buckman is going to second that.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Buckman.
Yes.
Ms. Dobler-Drew.
Yes.
Mr. Clausen.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Banfield.
Yes.
And I am a yes. Thank you. All right, look at you, still there. Approval of secondary school schedules for the 2023-24 school year.
Yes, next up are 4 secondary, 2 middle, and 2 comprehensive high schools do an annual vote about their schedule. The management team meets and puts a schedule and is voted on by the entire certificated staff. So in front of you there is on the cover sheet, you have the list of the votes from the 4 sites, all passed, or the schedule that was decided on had the majority of the votes there that's listed.
And this is our usual process.
Every year.
Thank you.
Precisely.
Anyone from the public? Ms. Dawson. All right, come back to the board. Ms. Dobler-Drew.
I was surprised to see they voted for the trimester somehow. I thought I heard a lot of talk about semester.
At SLO High School?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's actually looking at that with Mr. O'Connor earlier. I think actually the vote for semester was larger at SLO High School than it was in previous years. So trimester, I think, has overwhelmingly been the vote at SLO High, and I think it's a little changed. But trimester is the preferred schedule of the teachers at SLO High.
Okay. Mr. Unger.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about the Laguna Middle School choice? It's rare that we see a change in the school schedules. So could you tell me about that a little bit more, Mr. Wall?
Yeah, exactly. And you can tell that was our closest vote. Laguna was pretty split on remaining with the schedule that they have. And then the Tuesday, Thursday, is a chance in the advisory to push in. It could be an SEL lesson. It could be something that they want, where it doesn't fit into a period. And then tutorial is a chance to push in from special education, assist with kids in learning. So it's 2 short periods, one on Tuesday and one on Thursday. So they're stealing a little bit of minutes from throughout the week in order to have those 2 advisory and tutoring pullouts of push-ins.
Right. This is any other board comments?
Yeah, I have a question.
Action Item, I will go to.
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, Mr. Clausen. So
Sorry.
sorry.
So do we have to vote on this every year? That's just a clarifying question. That's just a clarifying question.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And it's fully at the teacher's
Both
discretion.
vote of the year.
And it's fully at the teacher's discretion.
No. I'm going to defer to Dr. Prater to explain.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Clausen, the contract, the collective bargaining agreement stipulates that the staff, the certificated staff annually vote on the schedule they prefer. If the board does not agree with the schedule they voted on, the default action by the board could be a 5 out of 6 semester schedule, 5 periods out of 6 that teachers would teach. So a traditional master schedule of 6-period day semester. And so since I've been here, the board has never used that default choice, largely because the board has, I think, taken a position to allow the sites to work through what they feel is the best program for kids. And so it's been contentious and it's been close at times, but I think we've navigated those decisions pretty carefully and thoughtfully. And, I've done a deep dive into the research of master schedules, and by and large, the research is clear that the master schedule itself has a very limited impact on achievement. And with only a few outliers, but when you think about the main schedules that we use, semester versus trimester, there's nothing in the research that suggests that it has a detrimental impact on achievement, either one. So that's how we've navigated it historically.
Okay, thank you. My comment is more, it's more as a parent, having had children go through slow high and go trimester, semester, trimester, and that might have been COVID driven. But I think having it change, I think one way and then back seemed disorienting, and having it not change every year seems maybe better than
Yeah, that was a COVID anomaly.
That was,
Okay.
yeah, Mr. Clausen, that was certainly a decision made during COVID as a result of our collective bargaining efforts to ensure the least amount of disruption as we transition to a virtual place. It was very difficult. It was no doubt disruptive. I experienced that myself, but it was I think the least of the least harmful of the choices we had, and given what was in front of us. But yeah, I think the board, and myself included, have given that level of autonomy to our sites to empower our sites with a process to choose their schedule. And when you look at the Laguna schedule this year in particular, you can see how that plays out. When the principal and staff work together on ideas, try to empower the group to challenge themselves to maybe look at different ways of supporting kids. I think what you see there is a staff that's willing to look at themselves. And we've seen that at Los Osos Middle School as well. Through the years, we've seen it at Morro Bay. But for the past 15 years or so or longer, Slow High has really held themselves to the trimester system as an overall value. So that's what I would say.
Thanks.
Right.
Thanks.
Anyone from the public? Okay, this is an action item. We need a motion and a second, please.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Clausen,
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Delver Drew,
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Buckman.
Yes.
Mr. Banfield.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Right, we are now going to the action consent calendar. Please let me know if you'd like something. Ten point oh four, approval of minutes for March 21. 10.05, approval of purchase orders and cow card purchases.
Please pull.
10.06, approval of furniture and equipment request. 10.07, approval of warrants and payroll. 10.08, acceptance of donations. 10.09, proposed revisions to board policy 3280, sale, lease, rental of district-owned real property, second reading. 10.10, proposed revisions to board policy 7150, site selection and development, second reading. 10.11, memorandum of understanding for school resource officer.
Please
10.12.
pull 1011. Please
Yes,
pull
sir.
1011.
Two of us.
10.12, approval of field study trip requests, robotics to Dallas, Texas. 10.13, approval of certificated and classified personnel items.
I move approval of items 10.01 to 10.04, 10.06 to 10.01, and 10.12 and 10.13.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Anyone from the public? Ms. Dawson? Right. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Delver Drew?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Buckman?
Yes.
Mr. Clausen?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Banfield?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, 10.05, Mr. Buckman.
Yes, thanks for this opportunity. First of all, I want to thank Katie Ekman for spending time with me, working through all this so I can understand it. You know, it's interesting to me that sometimes these little details where you can really just see kind of where the focus of the district is. And so sometimes I enjoy going through all this. Some of the ones that caught my attention, one of them is a large amount of money. I talked to some folks here tonight for new vacuums for the schools. There's some debate as to whether they want to keep the old ones, but they like those better. Then I noticed that we bought some skateboard decks, and I thought that was good. So working, I don't think we're allowed to ride skateboards at school, but we're going to build some cool ones. One of the schools was able to visit the Slow Country Club on their regular walk across the street to get to the country club. That was kind of cool. And so, it's just fun going through this. So I'd like to move approval of 10.05.
Ms. Delver Drew, did you have a question about
Not
that one?
about that.
Oh, okay, yeah, we need to do these one at a time.
Well, I just have my light on.
Oh, okay.
Not
Yeah.
interrupting.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, anyone from the public? Right, we have a motion and a second, Mr. Clausen.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Ms. Delver Drew.
Yes.
Mr. Buckman.
Yes.
Mr. Banfield.
Yes.
And I am a yes. All right, 10.11, Ms. Delver Drew and Mr. Clausen both pulled it. Eve, why don't you go ahead and then we'll go to Brian.
A couple of different aspects about it. Love having an SRO. I think it's very important. I would even like better having two SROs. So I realize it's expensive, but I wanted to address that also. First of all, if you had two, one could be on the coastal and one could be in the city. And then we could also split the salary because each would have less duties, which seemed to be considerably a lot of duties. So that's one thing. And then second thing was why the salary schedule goes up by 6.5, 7,000 from one year to the next.
Thank you, Ms. Dobler-Drew. I appreciate the insights. You know, if you go back historically, we've had former relationships with our different law enforcement agencies, which in our case, we have San Luis Obispo, the city of San Luis Obispo. We have the SLO County Sheriff's Department, as well as the Morro Bay PD, or the city of Morro Bay. And so we've worked really hard to remedy those relationships, especially on the heels of some of these school shootings and just the obvious dangers in our society these days. And so when we really took a long look at our former partnerships with our law enforcement agencies, we began to have conversations with them. And there was a level of we saved money in our former contracts, but because we would negotiate for a certain number of days. Well, what would happen is our SROs, because of the way the contract was written, our SROs were often pulled off site to take care of city or county related business. So we were feeling like we were paying, but we weren't getting what we needed. And so we reframed our thinking and really went back to the cities of SLO, Morro Bay, and in particular, those two, and I'll get to the county in a minute. And so the city of Morro Bay and SLO, what we did was we engaged them for a full-time SRO dedicated to our district. So they're not necessarily assigned to a site, they're assigned to the district. And that's what you're seeing here tonight is a contract with our district that encompasses the full year. And so it's more expensive, but what we found is that the relationships have improved and the systems within how we work with our unique cities and police departments has improved dramatically. And so that I see as a real strong benefit because the SROs, while they house themselves, one at Morro Bay High and the other at SLO High, they really are overseeing all the schools and we feel like it's working because if there's something that pops up at an elementary school, that SRO is in the car and gone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I understood it was only going to be San Luis High School.
Oh,
with
no,
one.
no. It's San
I
Luis
did
High.
say that, though.
It's San Luis High is the house where that person is
Oh.
housed. But what I'm asking you to prove tonight is SRO contracts with the district.
So this is just one of two MOUs that will be coming to the board. So this was just the city of San Luis?
Yes.
So there'll be another one from the city of Morro Bay.
Okay, we
Yeah.
couldn't have them.
I'm
both at the
sorry,
same
I
time.
should have
Yeah, so
clarified that.
yeah, they're just two different agreements.
We haven't gotten the
Still waiting for
the
the city
agreement
of Morro Bay.
because Morro Bay's had some turnover. So we're working on
Okay.
that. And then
Oh.
and SLO County sheriffs, I have to just extend a thank you to our sheriff Parkinson, Ian Parkinson.
Mhm.
He has set aside resources for a dedicated SRO to the county areas that represent Los Osos as well as Los Ranchos. And so he is really, Sheriff Parkinson has been a stalwart supporter of us, is always willing to lend a hand, and he has secured an SRO to the Los Osos community, specifically anchored that SRO
Oh.
at Los Osos Middle School without charging the district.
Oh,
So it's little known, but it's important.
I think you had mentioned this in passing to me months back,
Yeah.
beginning of the school year. And so I was looking for the two and then I only saw the one, so.
And
Sorry.
I really appreciate that insight, and I'm sorry, I didn't mention that the SRO contract for Morro Bay will be forthcoming.
Yes, and then the other part was the jump in salary.
Yeah, that's their, the cost for, I want to say for their collective bargaining agreement, as well as pension costs that are increasing on all of us. So that's what you're seeing, that step is
And-
likely the
Okay.
cost of that employee.
Then also could they enforce the human trafficking, I mean, not enforce, teach maybe even the human trafficking safety for the children?
Well, yeah, it's interesting you say that. They actually are trained up on that. They're well aware
Yeah.
of it,
I've,
and
I've heard Ian Parkinson speak to this and
Mhm.
said that they have, they're ready to send it out. And we've also had a discussion here on the board, and you
Yeah.
did a presentation.
something along those lines could easily be incorporated in the work we're doing with social emotional learning and safety at our sites. It could easily be incorporated. We are building in advisory periods at most of our schools now. We're working on
Right.
making that more comprehensive.
So then the officer, could present it instead of more things for a teacher to do.
Yeah.
And it could be a more in-depth and effective program perhaps because of the more time for the
And
SRO.
And that could fall under the work we're doing with them in our safety planning, because
Great.
we know human trafficking is a real danger.
And in this county, it's
This-
gone way up.
Because of the 101 corridor, there's no
Mhm.
doubt. And, but that is something I will continue to work on.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
I saw Mr. Clausen had a question also on this.
I was just looking for the context on how many SROs we had, what campuses they cover, and the history, and I think we covered that really well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you
Oh,
changed
yeah,
your mind.
I was flashing my light at you
Yeah,
too.
okay, sorry.
And I just want to acknowledge Dustin Alexander at San Luis Obispo High School, who I think has been a real positive influence there. And worked really, really hard with the campus and the campus staff and the campus administration. And I think we should also share that Chief Scott, the San Luis Obispo Police Chief, has students in our school district.
Yes.
So he's got some skin in the game, as well as long time, and I don't believe she's doing it out here anymore, but Susie Correa, Deputy Correa, who is a school resource officer for the county here, specifically in Los Osos, and who also had children that went to school in Morro Bay. So we've had some really good experiences with our SROs. I'm not sure who's doing it out here now, but they've definitely been a positive influence.
I completely agree.
Any other board comments? I also would like to acknowledge Dustin. He's seen us through some tough times. He's dealt with some challenging situations, and he's done it with a great degree of professionalism. So I appreciate him. All right, this is an action item. I would like a motion in a second, please.
I make a motion to pass this MOU, MOU between San Luis Coastal and the San Luis Obispo City Police Department.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Dolber Drew,
Yes.
Mr. Clausen,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Unger, Mr. Buckman,
Yes.
Mr. Banfield, and I am a yes. All right. Next, we have any advanced agenda items? And I see fingers hovering out of excitement for board reports. So Mr. Buckman, then Mr. Unger, then Ms. Dobler Drew, then Mr. Banfield.
Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, there's an item that we approved, and I just want to thank all the teachers and staff that have agreed to take on extra duties. They're already working more than full time. So to do this on behalf of the students is great. And for those that took on athletics, I want to thank them on behalf of those folks in the community that like to go to all the games and see us win. So it's really nice to do that. The second thing I was going to talk about was the after-school program, but skip that because it's the same story. But the third thing is I'd like to, in our consent agenda item, there was approval to send the San Luis High School robotics team to Texas, which is out of state, which is kind of cool. They'll be competing against 800 robotics teams from around the world. And so I just offer them the best of luck, and I'm glad to see we're starting to get out there and compete. Thanks.
Mr. Unger?
Yeah, last week, Mr. Angel, Phil Angel, who is a humanities and avid teacher here at Los Osos Middle School, invited our congressional representative, Salud Carbajal, to the school. Interestingly enough, Ms. Dilber drew, and part of the reason was because they're discussing finances and economics, and I believe they're involved in a contest, actually. Salud came out, or Congressman Carbajal came out, spoke to the class for close to an hour, passed out congressional coins to everyone, really told his compelling story of his life. He has a real, very, very, very compelling story. And I think it was an honor to the class and for him to come out to see what we're doing out here. Great questions from the students. So thank you to Congressman Carbajal and also to Mr. Angel for arranging this. And then I think it was Thursday or Friday. I think it was Thursday. I went over to Bishop's Peak because they had met their Marchathon fundraising goal, and the prize for doing that was sliming Mrs. Jones, the principal, as well as Mrs. Hollis, who was a good sport about it, the school secretary. And it was great to see all the Bishop's Peak students out there cheering on their representatives as they poured what looked to be really disgusting stuff all over the school administration. And it was a cold day too. So congratulations to them.
Ms. Dilber Drew?
Two things. I don't think unless my memory doesn't serve me, I don't think I mentioned how much I enjoyed the DLAC, the last one from Mr. Mayfield, where you gave him the award. And I really enjoyed staying for the presentation in Spanish and polishing up my Spanish a bit, and even participating in it a little bit. And Mrs. Frost was there too, and she said, I need a translator. So, but it was so good because Mrs. Heredia, she's so gentle and charming, and she was doing a teaching on gratitude, and how it energizes you, and not to worry about the future, and just all these things that are just so good and comforting to families. And I just really loved it, and I'd like to go to more of those meetings. Do we have one more before the end of the year or not? That is the actual last one. Okay. So it was just wonderful, and to see Mr. Mayfield honored like that too was great, and you did a great job with that, Mr. Prater, Dr. Prater. And Ms. Frost, I didn't mean to embarrass you about the translation. She's retiring. Yeah, it won't hurt her career. Not going to hurt her career. She no more rungs of the ladder to go up. Okay, so the second one was a Pac Beach open house where I totally enjoyed it, even though it was freezing cold. And Mr. Dowler is such a warm and receptive principal, and he made it so nice for everybody. The food was good. Our Araceli and her mother was serving us, our former Araceli gal that did a commencement speech. And also I got to meet a really special student there who is entrepreneurial. I mean, those kids think entrepreneurially, many of them. And his name's Monty. And it turns out we go to the same church. And that I saw him on Sunday, the following Sunday at the church too. He had just graduated from Pac Beach, and he has his own clothesline that he's promoting. And he was wearing an example of it. I mean, hey, hello, that's an example of the kind of student we're talking about, uniquely and wonderfully created. And I think Mr. Dowler wrote me and said, he's uniquely intelligent, and he definitely is. And that's the kind of student we love to see at Pac Beach and all our schools. Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Buck. Oh, Mr. Blackman already went. Now I'm, it's reached the point of the evening where I can't read my own writing. Mr. Banfield.
Well, I took the opportunity to see the Adams family over at Morro Bay High School. Great production. In fact, I kept thinking, this can't be a high school production. It's just too good. Special feeling about the fact that Morticia was a former student. And the moon, I've known her since she was about this tall. Great production. And in the new theater, the lighting was great. Everything was wonderful.
Good, thank you. I would quickly add, I don't usually do these, but I'll state that I think I was first in, last out at Pacific Beach's open house, had a very long and pleasant conversation with the whose name I can't remember, the person teaching the construction management, construction course. Yeah, he's so interesting and enthusiastic and well-informed, and it was really fun, as well as visiting all the other classrooms and speaking with the teachers as well. It's a great opportunity. That's Mr. Clausen. Anything to add? Out there far away?
No, I'm good. I'm good tonight. I'm good. See a former school high drama student perform tomorrow night.
Yay, yeah. We'll be excited to hear about it. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening, and see you next time. Thanks. We're adjourned.